The worst part of my job is having to talk to the distraught families. The look on their faces when you have to tell them that their son, daughter, brother, whatever it may be isn't coming home, it just tears me up inside. The case of Willie Rightman was no different. My name is Samuel Grant, and I am a private investigator. I was retired from the Oakfield Police Department, so I had a fair bit of experience. Plus, I had helped over a dozen people and families solve crimes ranging from break-ins, theft, to disappearances, and even a murder case. I had help from the cops on that one. Even though I was independent, I did often work with the Oakfield PD to get recourses and whatnot. I had their trust, and they had mine. Oakfield was a small mountain community situated at the base of a heavily forested valley. It has a residence of only about 2,000 people, with a relatively small police force. The only big attraction we have is the world's biggest stalk of corn. Anyway, the parents of Willie Rightman, Will and Sasha, came to me after apparently being disappointed by the police force's lackluster response. I promised them I would do the best I could. I felt personally responsible for finding the missing girl. Anyway, I started with the description of the child, the place they last saw her, and the contacts of friends and family. It was a long, hard search. The forest outside the town is eerie, walking alone out there. The trees tower over you. It makes your skin crawl. Every noise around you makes you just 6 feet in the air. I had a dog with me, a big Belgian Shepherd. Not an official police dog, but he could pick up scents. Apparently, the family had been camping at the Pinewood camping grounds, give or take a mile or two out west from Oakfield. She had seen a small animal of some sort, ran off to chase it, and then simply vanished. The police had done some searching around the forest, however, after they found nothing around the woods, they had apparently just given up. That's when the parents came to me. Using this information, and a piece of clothing, my trusty dog had managed to find a scent that the cops missed. He ran off into the woods, and my aging body had trouble keeping up with him. But, eventually I found him barking in front of a pile of dirt. My stomach dropped. I was experienced enough to know what to expect beneath that dirt pile. It took me a while to work up the courage to start digging, however, once I did, I was horrifically surprised. The body was in a late stage of decomposition. I had managed to get it out of the hole, and once there I took a few photos. Just looking at the body, I knew that she did not simply get lost and die of dehydration or starvation. She had been attacked by someone or something. Once the police arrived, they took the body, and I followed them back to the station. Inside, I found the parents of the little girl, inconsolable, sitting in the lobby. An officer was doing his best to comfort them. The autopsy report had shown some strange things. For starters, the body was covered what seemed to be saliva of some sort. At first, I suspected it could have belonged to a bear or some other large animal. Testing quickly ruled that out. The most disturbing this about the body was the fact that something had clearly been eating it. The bite marks around the body, however, did not match any animal in the area. I make the connection to a large dog, like a wolf or something, because of the way the bite looked. However, the marks were too rounded, and more disturbingly too large to belong to any dog I knew of. However, the body was in the ground, perfectly buried when I found it. In my eyes, that meant that something had torn the body apart and eaten parts of it, and then someone buried it in the woods. My theory was proven when a set of fingerprints were found on the body, but strangely enough, they could not be matched to anyone in the database. This new revelation sent chills down my spine. I knew something fishy was going on here, something the cops did not want to admit. We were dealing with something far more serious than a simple disappearance. For obvious reasons, I did not inform the parents of this. Call me what you want, but they did not need to know that something killed, mutilated, and buried their child. At least I couldn't bring myself to. Instead, I simply informed them that their daughter had wandered too deep into the woods and died of dehydration. Still not a good response, but I have a feeling that if they knew the truth, they would understand. The next day, I returned to the scene of the crime alone to try and get more evidence. The first thing I noticed was a very trace amount of hair in a tree. Funny thing was, it was nearly 8 feet in the tree. I'm only about 6 feet tall by comparison. I grabbed the tuft with a pair of tweezers and placed it in a small plastic bag. The next thing I noticed was something that I can never forget. It was a footprint in the mud. In fact, it was a trail. I was shocked by the sheer size. I mean, they weren't ridiculously huge, however they were large enough to be concerning. The heel alone was probably about the size of a softball, maybe a little larger. They had 4 toe prints on the front end, and were ultimately probably about 16 inches in length. What shocked me the most was the stride length. At least 6 feet, but the thing was that these prints were fresh. They were not there the day before, so something made these prints in this area in the last 24 hours. Suddenly I felt very uncomfortable. Goosebumps covered my skin. I felt like I was being watched from every direction. My heartbeat and breathing quickened. I stayed only long enough to snap a photograph of the prints, then I hauled ass out of there as fast as I could. My black car rolled into my driveway at about midnight on Tuesday. Or I guess it would be Wednesday morning. Sleepily I shuffled out of my car and into the cool, crisp night air. I noticed a small, white rectangle on my door. Upon closer inspection I found that it was an envelope labeled Grant in marker. Annoyed, I pulled it from the door and opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. In pen it read, "Greeting, Detective Grant. I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect you to find her so quickly. It was only a matter of time, I suppose. Anyway, it is a pleasure to be working with you once again, Detective. But watch your back, you never know when you might be next. Your good pal, Victor." I looked up from the note and at my house. My head started to beat just a little faster. Quickly, I unlocked the door and hurried inside, being extra sure to lock everything I saw. After a while, I started to calm down just a little bit. My dog trotted out of the kitchen toward me. Something about him always cheered me up. Anyway, I sat down on my couch and took the manila file out of my bag. Inside were all the photos I had taken of the strange footprints, of the body, etc. I started going through them to find something that could explain just what the hell was going on. But I soon fell asleep in my couch. I was awoken later that night by heavy breathing outside my home. Silently, I shot up from my sleep. Just outside, the series of streetlights illuminated the outside, causing shadows and silhouettes that only served to add to the eerie feeling. The heavy breathing came from the side of the house, by where the kitchen was. From out the window, something caught my eye. Something big. In the split second I could see it, I saw that the thing slinked around my house and disappeared behind the wall. I could hear its heavy, animalistic breathing all too clearly until suddenly, as quickly as it began, it just stopped. The heavy breathing was replaced by thin, raspy breaths, and something now light and nimble trampled back into the woods. Against my better judgment, I opened the door a while later, holding my gun tightly. Outside, around the other side of the house, I could see a footprint. Well, more like an indentation in the grass. I ran inside, and after shuffling around through the photographs, I finally found one. I brought it back outside, and to my horror, the print in the grass and the print in the photo were almost a perfect match. The big print started in the tree line and walked around front of my house to the big window before stopping and turning around and walking about halfway around my house where the thing had stopped. Right behind where I had been sleeping. The next day I went to station. To hopefully ensure my safety, I told the chief I was not going to be officially participating in the investigation anymore. I guess I shouldn't be saying investigation, the cops had already closed the case. It didn't matter to me, however. I gave my last condolences to the family, and as far as I was concerned, I was done. Done with law enforcement, done with investigating, done with crime. I'll tell you, there's some awful people out there. I'm still not sure what happened to Willie Rightman, and I probably never will. And I, honestly, am just fine with that.